Talented, humble, versatile, amazing person who I have ever known was Yamuna Devi Dasi. Today we're observing, celebrating her passing, and they've asked me to be the master of ceremonies, to call people, to introduce them. I first met Yamuna when I started to associate with the very early devotees in London who had come from San Francisco. She was an amazing person. All of them were very amazing, very potent, very sincere, very dedicated to establishing Krishna consciousness in London, and they have done a very, very splendid job. London is the oldest, most established center in Europe, and there's simply thousands of people who are involved owing to the efforts and the dedication of these initial devotees. Yamuna and her husband, Guru Das, they left for Vrindavan. Shortly after, I came to Vrindavan, and that's mostly where I got to know Yamuna. We had nothing in those days. ISKCON had nothing. Prabhupada begged a piece of land. He was given this as a donation. We were living in the Radha Damodar temple upstairs in the rooms, above Prabhupada's room. The budget, Yamuna was the cook. The budget for cooking was 1 rupee and 4 annas, 25 paisa per person per day. Every day she would buy the spices, every day she would buy some milk, this was just, there was no extra. An amount of rice, an amount of dal, times 1 rupee 25 paisa, times the number of persons. We were very poor, we had nothing. There was no compound. There's a big compound now in Mayapur, a big compound, very luxury compound in MVT, and people tend to stay within the compound. I was recently in Calcutta, one devotee came back. I was recently in Mayapur, one devotee came back from Calcutta. Oh, he said it was hellish in Calcutta. Actually, I quite like Calcutta. And the older devotees, we were all over India, all over so many places, because there was no compound to retreat to. So the people who lived in those days, we have a camaraderie, we have a relationship, we bonded, and I had a very, very sweet, very, very loving relationship with Yamuna. I have a vivid memory. Recently, it was for one of the reunions. Yamuna was there, and I pulled into the car park in my car. She was standing with a number of devotees, mostly women, and I just went to the periphery. I was looking, just so much full of admiration and love for Yamuna, and I heard one of the women ask her, she said, "How does it feel to be such an important devotee?" And Yamuna, she bowed her head and she said, "I've never really considered myself to be a devotee." She said, to be a devotee is a very great thing. It's a very, very wonderful thing to be a devotee. And she said, "I aspire to be a devotee." And then she just again, as always, changed the conversation to Srila Prabhupada. She said, because from the inspiration from Srila Prabhupada, it was easy to apply. And then she just started to glorify Srila Prabhupada. And then she was just like this, glorifying, and just at the corner of her eye, she saw me. "Oh, Smara!" And she just ran. And she's a big girl. It's quite amusing to see her running. but she's a big lady, and she'd just come and hug me, Smara. So, you know. So we had a very, very sweet, very, very loving relationship, because we were all together in the beginning when we had nothing. There was absolutely nothing except the encouragement from Srila Prabhupada. And so one person who knew Yamuna, Devi Dasi, very, very well was Anada, and she was together in London, together here in India, in Vrindavan, and I'd like to call her first to... Yamuna was amazing because she... the things that people aspire for in the material world, name, fame, wealth, this is what people aspire for. And the most wealthy people with the most attractive lives, the celebrities, are probably the movie stars and the music stars. Even here in India, these are the big, big famous people, wealthy. George Harrison, after hearing Yamuna sing, and especially after recording her on the album, he told Yamuna, he said, I can make you a star. Because in England, many young singers were recognized by older famous singers, and under their patronage, under their tutelage, with their contacts, they also became very, very big, became millionaires, became celebrities in their own right. So George Harrison, he offered this to Yamuna. He said, I can make you a star. So with the stardom comes name, comes fame, comes opulence, wealth, an unrestricted lifestyle, just to do whatever you want. Yamuna said, I won't be able to do that. She said, I'm the pujari. She said, I have to. So very, very deliberately, she chose to serve Srila Prabhupada, to serve Krishna, instead of becoming a very, very famous person, very rich person, very noted person, famous. So a person who knew her as a person, knew her qualities, knew her, is Anada, and I would like to call her now to speak and glorify this wonderful devotee. Shri Yamuna Devi ki jai.
Yamuna Devi Dasi, our god sister and friend, and most focused servant and worshipper and daughter of Srila Prabhupada, is most worthy of remembrance, glorification, and also aspiration to follow her instructions and to follow in her footsteps, because she certainly dedicated her life to hearing from Srila Prabhupada and putting all of her energy into fulfilling his order. And as we know, this isn't a cheap thing. We were just reminded by Smar Hari Prabhu that Yamuna was offered the freedom to use her talents in a totally opposite direction to Krishna consciousness. And it's not an easy thing to turn that kind of offer down. But when you have the kind of attraction that Yamuna Prabhu had for Srila Prabhupada and for Krishna, for the holy name, for the Vaishnavas, then it's possible to do that. Because even great devotees have fallen prey to the attraction of the material energy. So I first heard about Yamuna when I was a bhaktin in France. I don't think I'd heard the Govindam prayers yet, but I'd heard about her. So when I came to India in November 1973, I'd had some communication, and I brought a little Air India brown hand luggage case. You might remember those. Do you remember them? They were little cases full of things she'd asked for from the devotees in Paris, like dried fruit and things like that. So I was happy I had some mission, something to bring to her. The devotees were living at that time at Gold Market, and that's where the temple was. Srila Prabhupada was living there when he came, and the ladies were living at Todarmal Lane, just down the road, and Yamuna and Madira were sewing for the pandal for Radha Parthasarathi, for the pandal program in Delhi. So I brought the suitcase, the little case, to her, and she was happy. My father came with me too, and I remember her saying to my father, "Oh, make yourself at home." And so he said, "Oh yes, I'm very happy wherever I am. I feel at home wherever I am." And she said, "But don't forget, this is Krishna's home, and we're all his guests here." So Yamuna had that particular ability, just as Srila Prabhupada had, to relate to everyone in a very personal way, because she was actually Krishna conscious. She didn't have envy. She didn't hold envy in her heart towards anyone. Her mission was to share what Srila Prabhupada gave her. So, as Nahari Prabhu was mentioning, the devotees had little, or materially little in those days. And for devotees like Yamuna, and other devotees who've lived in Vrindavan right from the early days, that lack of material facility wasn't a problem, because they had Srila Prabhupada's association and the fire, that burning fire of devotional service that was propelling them and sustaining them, nourishing them, to keep going, because there were so many obstacles. Just not to have material facility is such an obstacle in itself. It can be such a distraction. I remember Ganga told me that when they were living at Mr. and Mrs. Saraf's place, Ganga had just arrived there, and she asked Yamuna, Prabhu, where's the soap? So Yamuna pointed to a bucket of mud and chuckled. So she, a mischievous chuckle, there's a soap. So that's just a tiny glimpse of, imagine if we had to wash our hands in mud these days, we would turn our nose up at that. And also another little thing, there was a little window with bars on it, and it kept being pushed open, and people would push it open and peer inside. So Yamuna chuckled again and said that they're very curious. They want to know everything we're doing. So that was another thing, dealing with the local people and trying to get them to understand. And then sickness. Yamuna often had a chest problem, in those days, the trains, which is what the devotees would travel by, they would travel by train. They had steam engines, and there was a lot of smoke that would come out. And I remember Yamuna would often have a cough. One thing that comes to mind is that she was always willing to instruct a devotee, whether they were qualified or unqualified, and that was another quality that she imbibed from Srila Prabhupada, that she wasn't afraid to instruct a devotee. I remember one time at Delhi Temple at Anand Niketan, she had just come in from Vrindavan, and she was offering her obeisances to Radha Parthasarathi, and she started to chant the samsara prayers in the afternoon tune. And I was sitting there, and I couldn't hold a tune. But she was trying to teach me, and I couldn't get it, but she was very patiently trying to teach me the afternoon tune, which she had learned from Srila Prabhupada. Perhaps Saranga Thakur could teach that to us someday, because it is very important to follow the particular tunes for particular days. In England in 1986, I think it was, Yamuna and Dina came to England on the request of Jaitirtha Prabhu, and they rented a place, or we rented a place in Berkhamsted, and the idea was to enliven the Sankirtan devotees, and also teach them, share with them what Srila Prabhupada had taught. So we did that. It was a very nice ashram. It was wonderful to see Yamuna's meticulous nature at play. She had the ashram all very beautifully arranged and tastefully decorated. I remember one time we came to India, Gangamai and myself, and we'd left them with the rent money, and we came back a month later, and they asked us for some more rent money. And we noticed a calf in the garage. There was a little Guernsey calf in the garage, and they said, "Oh, we bought this little calf. Her name is Bimala. That's where the rent money went." So that was really, really wonderful. It was just wonderful to have a calf there. They were very much aspiring to follow Srila Prabhupada's instruction of simple living, high thinking. Dina did a little garden with the help of the Sankirtan devotees. So there were vegetables growing. But unfortunately, the situation wasn't really very viable for a farm community, even if it was a small one, because it was right in the middle of a town. But they tried. The calf got taken for a walk in the morning. Instead of people seeing a dog at the end of a leash, they saw Bimala, a Guernsey calf, going through the streets on a leash. But aside from that, there's no doubt that Yamuna took her relationship with Srila Prabhupada very seriously. And most of the time, it wasn't very easy for her to communicate what Srila Prabhupada had given, because either we weren't receptive, or we lacked faith for one reason or another. It wasn't always easy. One thing that does stand out, although obviously I wasn't there for this particular instruction that Prabhupada gave, Yamuna passed it on, that one time at Bury Place, when Srila Prabhupada was leaving, they were both standing in front of Radhalandanishwara, and Srila Prabhupada offered his obeisances to Radhalandanishwara, and then said to Yamuna, "If you just worship them in the simple way that I've taught you, you will definitely go back to Godhead." And then she said, he looked at her and said, "Please do it." And he looked at her again and said, "Please do it." And he looked at her again and said, "Please do it." And he had tears in his eyes. That Srila Prabhupada made everything very simple for us, because actually devotional life is simple. It's simple. We're not capable of complicated arrangements and rituals and this and that, but Prabhupada's focus was always to be able to bring out the devotional quality in our relationship with Guru and Krishna. So Yamuna was expert at picking up that spark of devotion, or flame of devotion, and passing it on. And I pray that all of us, especially myself, if I may, that we can allow I'm speaking for myself here now, that I can allow my desert-like heart, stone-like heart, to melt in the love that Srila Prabhupada is offering us at every moment, and that we can all become correct disciples, as Yamuna is, and thereby give pleasure to Guru and Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yamuna Devi Dasi Ki Jai. Thank you very much.
She made you feel very special. One time I was with her here in Vrindavan, and we were having a gathering of ladies, and we were reading Bhagavad-Gita, the whole Bhagavad-Gita, all the verses together. And she said to me, "Thank you so much for studying Prabhupada's books and teaching them." She just appreciated whatever little service you did for Prabhupada. And so whatever she did, she had a taste. She had devotion. She had absorption. She had a service attitude. In Nectar of Instruction, it is said that the attitude is the most important thing to make advancement in devotional service. So we can study the life of Yamuna Dasi and see what is her attitude and learn how to make progress. In fact, in one purport in Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada says that our Svarup is our service attitude. If we have a proper service attitude, then that's our eternal relationship with Krishna. So she had that. She had that service attitude with so much devotion. And it was all based on her unflinching faith in Srila Prabhupada. Guru Nishta. As Smarhari was saying, we didn't have temples, we didn't have anything to show externally. All we had basically was our faith in Prabhupada. And she had so much faith in Prabhupada that whatever, she was on the train going somewhere, and all of a sudden somebody came, and they stopped in Delhi, and a man came and said, "We want to start a temple." She got off Prabhupada said, "Get off the train and start a temple." I mean, who would do that? You know, you're here, you're with Prabhupada, you're going somewhere to some program, and he said, get off the train and start a temple. And so that was how it was. He would just tell you to do something, and then you just do it. You didn't think. You didn't think, oh no, where am I going to stay, and what am I going to eat? And it was very austere for them. There were rats and everything. And so Yamuna was ready at the drop of a hat just to leave everything and serve Srila Prabhupada, whatever he said. So she was serving him very closely, his Vapu, in the beginning years, and then later on she was serving his Vani. One morning walk in John Lennon's estate, if you read her book, you'll see she was alone with Srila Prabhupada. They were having many morning walks together. And it was in a rough road. There were a lot of stones. And Prabhupada was getting stones in his boots. And he asked her, can you take these stones out for me? And so she was doing that personal. That was one example. Of course, she was cooking for him as well. So she was also chanting for him. She was absorbed in chanting. And she had namaruchi. She had such attraction for chanting that it melted the hearts even of George Harrison, as we heard, that he wanted to make her a star. But she preferred to chant for Krishna than to chant for stardom. And so her chanting is a standard. Now we have in our temple every day, we hear her chanting in all the temples. Her chanting is the standard. It's one of the standards that's left here by Srila Prabhupada. Her cooking is a standard worldwide. She made these cookbooks. So she spread Krishna consciousness in that way. Her deity worship was the standard, is the standard. Her chanting. So, as Marhari said, you ask her, you say, oh, you're an important devotee. Someone asked her, how does it feel? She said, I'm not a devotee. She did not have a position. She was not known as a great scholar. She was a simple devotee. But she showed by her life how to be a devotee. She showed by her example. And so that's what we can take from Yamuna Devi. And that's what we will remember her for. We will remember how she applied the teachings of Srila Prabhupada to her life, even when she had no position and she was just, okay, simple living, high thinking. So she got a cow, and she even built her own house in Vancouver, made of straw, I heard. She built her own house. She never had a lot of money. She could have had everything, but she preferred to live simply and follow Prabhupada's instructions. So we pray to follow her footsteps, trying to chant with absorption, try to be faithful to Prabhupada, and never give up hope that someday Krishna will also pick us up, and one day we can join her in Srila Prabhupada in serving Krishna together. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
My first introduction to Yamuna Devi Dasi was actually the first day I joined the temple, and the singing of the Govindam prayers were so beautiful and so familiar that I knew I was home. And perhaps that was also an experience that everyone has when they join the temple and every day hear those prayers. I would say the greatest thing we have here in Vrindavan to be grateful for is her overseeing the beautiful carving of all our lords. She was overseeing so many things when the temple was being constructed, but I think her greatest contribution was the carving of these deities, where there's hardly any deities in the world that will match these. And her love and devotion is obvious in these deities. One time she was here and I went up to thank her for all that she had done to create this temple. And she just said very humbly, and thank all of you for maintaining it and continuing on. So I'm sure she's grateful to everyone here for their service to her deities or Prabhupada's deities that she actually helped to install. I think when she left her body, the thing that amazed me the most was almost every devotee that I spoke to had some remembrance of her personal contact with her. And to think that as busy as she was able to speak to everyone, encourage everyone, touch everyone's heart. They all had a memory of her and things that she had said. In my own life, there are two instructions which Prabhupada gave to Yamuna that I sort of made a big impact in my life, and one of those was that she didn't like to give out her recipes so much because she liked to cook, special things for Prabhupada. And he one time told her that if she didn't give out her service to others, then she would lose her talent. And I think for us that's a huge lesson for everyone individually, that our hearts have to be generous, that we have to always be giving out our service and our secrets and all the things that we have. And she had so much to give, and then of course she wrote those wonderful cookbooks and gave it to the world. And another was right in the beginning when she was cooking, I think for her sister's wedding. he instructed her that the outside of the pot had to be as clean as the inside of the pot. And I think for us that's, the inside and outside of our lives and our souls have to be just as clean. And we have to work always at that. Right before I left, went away from Vrindavan, I had the opportunity to spend some time with Yamuna. She came to have me make some little deity outfits for her deities. And she is so amazingly meticulous that it was quite frightening to try to think that I was going to have to make something for her. And her graciousness and her lovingness and her ability to encourage and fan the flame of other people's devotion was certainly exceedingly extraordinary, and to be touched by her. And I think we see, with Bibhu Chaitanya, with Yamuna Devi, with all the great devotees, the devotees who have worked so sincerely and so faithfully to Prabhupada, you can see that this quality is there, their ability to encourage others. Hare Krishna.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutle Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Yamuna was born in 1942, she's much older than most of us. She was 9 years older than me. And reading her book, which I haven't had time to do, I just started this morning, I realized that what she went through was very much what many of us went through growing up in America. Disillusionment, looking towards the arts, looking towards Eastern philosophy, and then finally meeting Srila Prabhupada and the devotees, and with that dedicating oneself to Prabhupada. But Yamuna was very special in one way, and that was she had a pioneering spirit. Actually, whatever she did, she was the first to do it. Her sister, who was her younger sister, Janaki was the first woman disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And it was Janaki who encouraged her to come and meet Prabhupada for the wedding. And then after that experience, Prabhupada very quickly encouraged Janaki and Mukunda and Yamuna to go and start a new temple in San Francisco. At that time, we only had the one temple in New York. So they picked up one of their childhood friends, Sam, who later became Shyam Sundar, and his girlfriend, Melanie, who became Malati. And they all piled into a car together and went down to San Francisco and started the first temple over there, which was quite an experience. You can read about it. All they went through to establish that temple, it just churned out so many devotees. So many devotees from there came, New York and then San Francisco. And then Prabhupada had another idea. He wanted to fulfill the desire of his spiritual master, which was to open a temple in London. So he called his faithful, pioneering Grihastha couples to start that temple. And that was the 6 of them who had been so successful both in New York and now San Francisco. That was Yamuna and now Guru Das, Shyam Sundar and Malati, and Mukunda and Janaki. Prabhupada was in Montreal, so he called the 6 of them to come to Montreal for about 2 or 3 weeks, and he trained them how to be successful in setting up a temple in London. Because Prabhupada noted that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he had sent 2 sannyasi disciples, and they failed. At most, they had some pictures taken with some royalty and women, and then they came back unsuccessful. They couldn't open a temple. But Prabhupada had a different, Prabhupada himself being the greatest pioneer, he had a different strategy. He sent Grihasthas to open the temple. And he felt that his godbrothers would criticize him for that. But he knew that these 6 people were so potent and so dedicated to him that he was sure they would be successful. So for those 2 weeks, he trained them in what? He trained them in kirtan. And Yamuna proved to be the most adept in singing. So he took special care in training her in Sanskrit pronunciation, in all the rhythms and all the tunes, everything. And those 2 weeks were spent learning how to do kirtan very nicely. And finally, like the day before they were leaving, they still didn't know how they were going to do it because we were all penniless in those days. Mukunda asked him, well, how are we going to accomplish this? And Prabhupada gave an example. He had seen a movie of Charlie Chaplin. And Charlie Chaplin, he was dressed in a formal tuxedo with tails in the back. It's what people used to wear in those days. And he was with a beautiful woman, and they sat down on a bench, and some mischievous boys had painted paint or glue on the bench. So when he got up, his tuxedo tails had been ripped. So everyone was laughing at him when he went back into the ballroom and was dancing because he didn't know that his tuxedo had been ripped. And then he went into the bathroom and saw the rip, and he decided to rip it up all the way to the collar, and he went back and started to dance exuberantly with the ripped up tuxedo. And when everyone saw what a big scene he was making with his nice dancing, they went into the bathroom and ripped up their tuxedos to the collar also. And they all came out dancing. So this was the instruction that Prabhupada gave these 6 devotees, how they would become successful in London. And that's just what they did. They went out with their dhotis and their saris, and they danced, and they sang, and they were a huge success just by their singing and dancing. So again, they had the greatest success in London, a place that even the sannyasis couldn't make even the slightest dent in. So for 1 year, they were there alone struggling. And finally, after 1 year, Prabhupada came to visit them. And they didn't have a storefront. John Lennon had given them their whole mansion to look after. But Prabhupada was more interested in getting a place in the center of the city. So he had them work very hard, and Prabhupada stayed for 3 months to give lecture series and to help them get that temple started. So now they had 3 pluses. There was New York, there was San Francisco, there was London. And then Prabhupada started his phase 2, and that was to come back to India and have the World Sankirtan Party. Now he wrote to Guru Das that, I remember in San Francisco, you and Yamuna had a desire to come to Vrindavan. So now I want you to come to India and make a temple here in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada traveled the first year all around with these devotees, the World Sankirtan Party, here in India. And finally, in 1971, he sent Guru Das to find a place here in Vrindavan to open the temple, and he brought the devotees here. So by the grace of Krishna Balaram, Gita Devi Saraf, she donated this wonderful land, and we were able to build this temple. And Guru Das, he was the temple president, and Yamuna Devi Dasi, being the wife, she actually ran everything. So she organized so much of what was going on here that we see today, all the details of how the deities would be worshipped, how the devotees were taken care of in those days. I came at that time. It was after Smarhari had already arrived here with Gunarnava. And I met Yamuna for the first time here. I had already met Guru Das in America, and I was just amazed at Yamuna, all she had accomplished for Srila Prabhupada. I held her in awe because she was just able to do so much for him. But at that time, she had become physically ill. So as I was coming in, she was secretly preparing to go out. And as she was getting the deities carved with the help of Bharadraj went to Jaipur and oversaw all the carving. Though Yamuna designed the deities, every detail, you'll see many of the Gaura-Nitai deities, their arms are straight up. She didn't make it like that. She made them dancing. And Krishna Balaram, of course, that was Bhardraja's painting, but she decided just how high Balaram should be so that the clothes go, and all these intricate details that only a pujari could understand. And then Radhasham Sundar, most beautiful Radhasham Sundar, she chose the face of Radharani from a murti that was in Madras at that time. And also, she changed that face to make Radharani the most beautiful of all deities. And then when she was carving little Radhasham Sundar, she secretly made a duplicate of those deities. And she kept them. No one knew. Maybe only Dinatarine knew. And when she made her great getaway, which was September of 1974, she took those little deities with her, and she had a plan to renounce everything and just go live very simply. So at that time, she wrote to Prabhupada and explained to Prabhupada what she was doing, and Prabhupada gave his blessings that she make a woman's ashram, which was also a very new thing. We never segregated in those days. It was always the girls and boys working together. But he gave her instructions how she should set up this women's ashram, keep a few cows only, not have many women, train them very nicely, not have any association with men, and to live a very austere life. And he named her deities at that time Radha Ban Bihari. She was very dedicated to Radha Ban Bihari. And at the end, when it was obvious that she was preparing to leave this world, she became so immersed in Radha Ban Bihari's worship. She had a list of some god sisters she would send emails to. Anada was on that list also, yeah? She would send us emails, what she was doing. And she would send us, like whenever there was a festival, she would send us a list of 108 preparations that she was going to make for Radha Ban Bihari. And she would send us photos of her deities, all the beautiful dresses that she had made, and all the special paraphernalia that she had prepared for them. And I could understand from those emails and from those photos that she was sending, she was just entering into this beautiful world of worshiping Radha Ban Bihari. And secretly, when we were living here together in Vrindavan, we all stayed in the same room. There were like 8 of us. She and Dinatarine had gone to an astrologer, Mr. Oja, to get their, what's it called, that brigu done, the brigu. So she kept it very secretly hidden, but because we all lived in the same room, we all knew what everybody else was doing. So one day when no one was in the room, I read that. I read her horoscope, and it said in the horoscope that she would have 2 children, that she would leave her husband, but she would have 2 children. So I understood always that she took Shri Radha Ban Bihari as her children, and she worshipped them so lovingly. They were everything in her life after she left Vrindavan and went to start her own place. And I'm sure that she's serving them now also under Prabhupada's care, or she's with Prabhupada because she was so fully dedicated to him throughout her life. And may we all be with her also to help her serve Srila Prabhupada and Shri Radha Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Thank you very much, Deva Shakti. When the temple was opened, when Srila Prabhupada did the first arti to Krishna Balaram, he had said he wanted Gaura-Nitai and Krishna Balaram because he wanted the world to understand that Krishna and Balaram had come again as Gaura-Nitai to start this Sankirtan movement, which was very much needed in Kali Yuga. Yamuna, she designed these original outfits, and they were very, very beautiful. These deities are some of the most opulent deities in the whole world. But to my mind, of all of the outfits they have ever had, these original outfits were just incredible. To my mind, she had dressed them like some village people. There were different colors, the skirts and the tops and the chadars. It was very like a Rajasthani, like Rajasthani village. It was just very, very beautiful. Srila Prabhupada had asked Yamuna Devi Dasi to learn about deity worship from the Radharaman temple. The Radharaman temple, in Prabhupada's view, in his estimation, they had a very, very high standard of worship. One of the early pujaris here who did the dressing and helped with the deities was a French devotee called Vishva Devi Dasi. And Vishva, they want her again to come to Bombay. She was here, she was in Bombay to learn about, in order to dress the deities and design the outfits and so on and so on. She has a daughter called Krishnambra. In Krishnambra, she went to Fashion College in London, and she now lives in Bombay permanently, in Juhu, and she designs all of the outfits for the deities. Some of the pujaris from Radharaman temple, they went to Juhu and they saw, wow, they just were amazed by who was making these outfits. So they inquired, who is making these outfits? They were introduced to Krishnambra, this Vishvadevi's daughter, who lives there, and this is what she does. This is her service to Krishna. And they petitioned her very humbly, could you make an outfit for Radharaman? And she said, yes, of course I will. So she made this beautiful exclusive outfit for the Radharaman deities, and they were so amazed by the quality, by the workmanship, that again they commissioned her. They said, can you make some more? Can you? So I thought this was just so amazing that Yamuna, she went there to learn how to, all the different aspects of deity worship, which she established here, which she trained to the other people, and now one of the girls who was trained, her daughter in turn is the preferred tailor to make the Radharaman temple deity. This is just so amazing. I would like to call now for Moksha Lakshmi to come. She's a very, very amazing devotee. She was been in Vrindavan in those very early days. And for the last 30 years, she's been a teacher of Gurukul children in London, and she's very, very well loved by everyone, particularly the children who she has encouraged and supported for the last 30 years. Moksha Lakshmi.
Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Yamuna Devi. Thank you, Samara Hari. I have a bit of a cold, so my voice is a bit... I didn't know Yamuna Devi as well as many of my god sisters, because while she was in India, I was in England, and while she was in England, I was in India, and we were... So I didn't know her that well, but one time I went to stay with her and Ganga and Anada in their Berkhamsted house, and I learned how hospitable she was, because being hospitable is, it's a Vaishnava quality. And I always remember, and this is like probably the longest conversation we ever had, she asked me whether I wanted a soft mattress or a hard mattress. Which is, it's really looking after your guest when you get into such details. So I thought that was a really wonderful quality, that she was such a hospitable person. It's funny Samara Hari should mention the deity clothes, because that's exactly what I wanted to mention also. That original outfit that Krishna and Balaram wore, it was a personal outfit, because each piece was embroidered according to who the deity was. And Krishna and Balaram had cows little cows embroidered all the way down their dhotis. You've never seen anything like it. It's just beautiful. And I know this because I have some of the pieces of that original outfit. And to see such an personal outfit made, I think it gives us an insight into what a personalist Yamuna was. To think, she was a very meticulous person. She was a details person. You know, many people, they don't get into details, but Yamuna really got into details. And to see these little cows embroidered down this dhoti, I think it gives us into an insight in how she thought through about the deities. In those days, such opulent deity outfits were very rare. I mean, I know many of you have been here, you'd have gone to the temples and the deities were really just wearing some kind of, not even proper jari, just go to different kind of saris, cheap saris even. The deities wore these. So Krishna and Balaram, I think, set a new standard in deity worship throughout India, possibly, maybe not in some of the southern temples, but certainly in Vrindavan. And it was Yamuna, the meticulous nature, that I think gave us these cows on the dhoti and changed deity worship to some degree. And another thing she changed is England, because she brought Krishna consciousness, her along with the other 5 devotees, they brought Krishna consciousness to England. Now, you have to understand that in those days, to show up, a man to show up in a dhoti, a lady in a sari, was a very unusual thing. And then not only that, to sing up and down the major streets of London, it was just really unusual, and it would have taken a lot of courage to do that. So I think another one of Yamuna Devi's qualities would be courage, be very courageous to go into the streets of London and chant like that. I mean, it was unheard of in those days. Even in the mid-70s, non-devotees would see devotees and would be shocked to see them. So what to speak of the late 60s? So I think she's a very courageous person to do that. We spent some really wonderful festivals in the UK a few years back, probably about 10 years back by now, reunions where all these devotees, Yamuna, Malati, Janaki, of course, didn't come. Shamsundar and Gurudas came and told us all the exciting adventures that they had with George Harrison, etc., opening the temples in England and establishing Krishna consciousness, and thus fulfilling the desire of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So again, her place in history, if you like, is being cemented, because what I really wanted to say was about Yamuna Devi is that it's said that 3 generations remember us, each individual, you know, your own generation, your parents, your grandparents. Like, my grandson will remember me, my daughters will remember me, but after that, who's going to remember you? No one's going to remember you. It's gone, you're finished. But devotees like Yamuna Devi, and specifically Yamuna Devi, they have left a legacy on this planet. They have left a legacy that will be remembered, because she took Krishna consciousness to England, and the British yatra, it's a thriving yatra. Harinam still goes on. I think London Temple do Harinam every day. Saturday night Harinam in London is one of those things you have to experience to believe, because the people absolutely love us in London. They all join in and dance to the okie-kokie, as we call it, with the devotees. It's a really, really wonderful thing to see and be a part of. And we partly have, obviously Srila Prabhupada has given us this, but to help create that, Yamuna Devi played a very significant part in creating this. And for that, she leaves this legacy into eternity, if you like. She's a part of the history of ISKCON. And for that, I think that's a wonderful thing. that she's given us this. And I just one thing I'd like to say, though, I always think that Srila Prabhupada actually wanted her to be on the GBC. So that's how much he trusted her and how much he loved her. And I think how Prabhupada loves you is a wonderful thing, and Prabhupada obviously loved Yamuna Devi. So with those words, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Moksha Lakshmi ki jai. The London Harinam, Saturday night Harinam, is world famous. There's always some devotees go, a dozen, 20 devotees. And on big occasions, before Rath Yatra, big occasions when many devotees are in London, there can be 200 devotees snaking through the West End of London. There's many regular people join in. There's one restaurant, and it's on a corner, and the devotees dance on this corner near Piccadilly, between Piccadilly and Leicester Square. And there's one waiter comes out. He's the head waiter, and he's a handsome man. He looks Italian. He has a tight fitted shirt and a tight waistcoat and black pants. And he comes out. He's a very good dancer, and he dances for 10 minutes. He just dances, and then he goes back in and serves his customers. So the devotees are waiting, and for anyone who hasn't seen it, they're just like, wow, so surprised, because suddenly this man, he just comes and he just dances. He's a beautiful dancer, and he dances to the kirtan. So there's all these regular people. But when we had the first reunion, and I was with Shyam Sundar, and we were going somewhere, he said, oh, we can go through here, and in several places he knew a shortcut. So we said, well, how do you know all these places? He said, when we first did Harinam, he said, every single day the police would chase us. They would come and we would run from the police. So all the little alleys and through shops and out the other door, two-door shops, and they knew all the tricks, to avoid being arrested by the police. So finally, after persisting and doing it, the police just gave up. They just thought, well, what can we do? They're not going to stop. They're just... And that is how Harinam became established in London, because these original devotees were running from the police, who would try to stop. What is this noise? Why are they doing this? They would just run. So they knew all the shortcuts, all the alleys, There is a very nice devotee from London, who's lived in London, who's lived here for many, many years. I'd like to call him now to speak. Trikalagya Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Yamuna Mataji ki jai. I was on one of those Harinams, and I remember that one time we were in Scotland, and the shopping malls used to be two shops on the two sides. So the police would stand at the end of the mall, and then as we would get there, they would ask us all to jump into the van, and then we had to go to the prison house, stay there for all day, chant, and then they would let us out. But this particular day, when we got close to the police, we made a U-turn and we started walking the other way. So it went on several times. And then finally the police started to move in, and then Balabhadra Prabhu was leading the kirtan. He started chanting Nrsingadeva prayers, and for some reason the police officer just said, let them go. So my experiences with Mother Yamuna was very little, but whatever little experience was very sweet. I met her at Chaitanya College, where some 250 devotees used to live. And I had just joined as a new Bhakta at Bhakti-yoga Manor, and I was sent to Chaitanya College, which was also a fairly new center. And there was a Gurukul there, and there were some 250 devotees living there. So Yamuna Mataji had come there, and she was writing books, so she wanted to be in a place she would not be disturbed. So we would get glimpses of her in the Mangalati time, and then part of the morning program. And everyone knew who she was, but like we were kind of too reluctant to go too close to her. But then one day, one of my roles doing service as a new bhakta was to go into the kitchen and roll chapatis for 250 devotees. So we'd start rolling chapatis at around 8:30, and we'd be rolling chapatis till 1 o'clock. So one day she came in, and she would come in especially to guide the devotees who were cooking for the deities. But one day she came into the side where we were rolling there's a big table, and there's a couple of devotees are rolling chapatis there. A couple of us, the less experienced people like me, we were rolling the dough and putting it on the table. And obviously when she came, she noticed that, all the balls that were being rolled, some were big, some were small, and hence some chapatis were big and some were small. Some had map of Africa and some had map of India. So she came and she asked everyone to stop. And she came into the side where we were and said, I'm going to teach you how to roll the ball. So I'll never forget that. The way she came and she just took the ball and said, some of you are taking like this, some are taking like 2 hands. She said, no, you do like this. Use your fingers like this. Go to the depth of your middle finger. Just take that much dough out. Flatten it in your hands, and then you roll it nicely. And turn it. And she made. Within a few minutes, she had like 10 balls. See now, they all look the same, right? So can you all try it? So she stood there for a good half an hour, teaching us how to roll the balls, and then teaching the people who are rolling the chapatis how to make them into circle. And she was saying, see, like this. Because a lot of us, when you roll the chapatis, you press, and then it goes long this way, and then you try to turn it around this way, because we're not experienced, So she would say, like, as you're rolling, instead of just pressing, you go sideways like this, and the chapati will turn round, and it will come into a nice round shape. And so that was my first lesson from the mother, how to roll chapatis. So that was a wonderful experience, and I always will remember her for that. We all knew she was writing, her book. That's the time she was writing her book. And then she had stayed there for several months, I think maybe 3 months, a little longer. And my second experience was some years later that Ravi Shankar used to come to England to do concerts with George Harrison. So they would do some concerts in Albert Hall, and then some evenings they would have like a VIP concert at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in our little auditorium. So a few weeks back, before that, a few months, I can't remember exactly the time period, but that time Yamuna Mataji had come out with several recipes of how to make ice cream instead of buying it from outside. So she was experimenting, and then when she finally decided yes, so she started introducing ice cream, for the deities. And then later on when Ravi Shankar came, it was amazing the way she took charge for that particular evening's, cooking. You can't even find the way she had prepared all the items and put them so nicely, and the devotees who were working with her, like Balagopal, Bhumi, so all those ladies, there was a unique team that worked with her. I would say even if there was such thing as an 11-star hotel could not prepare what she had prepared. It was done so nicely. All the preparation. And I happen to know that because I was helping to organize the concert side, the VIP side, and my wife was involved on the cooking side. She was just a backup person, and I was a backup person with, the temple management. But it was done so nicely that afterwards, George Harrison and Ravi Shankar, they glorified how nicely the prasadam was prepared and how nicely it was all set up, There's some 50, VIPs who had come for that evening. And that's how how I experienced, that was my 2 lifetime experiences getting close to Yamuna's cooking and getting a lesson from her. So I just wanted to thank Mataji and Prabhupada for, giving her as a Guru Mata. She was ideal Guru Mother, for the movement, for the mothers. There's no doubt about it in my mind, talking to my wife, she was telling me some other things, and I was feeling that, yes, we are very fortunate, but sometimes when we are very fortunate, very close to some very advanced devotees, we don't realize, because the tendency is to take it for granted, Because you're doing your service and you think there's some senior devotees doing service. But whenever we have an opportunity to serve with any senior devotees or with any other devotees, we should take it as a privilege. We should take it as a boon from Srila Prabhupada. And it'll be very nice, because there are so many so-called mothers, they say mother this and mother this, and they're becoming famous for just some social work. But she was and she will always be the real mother, the spiritual mother. And it will be nice that we should work out with, the authorities, that how we can promote her book. Just like Prabhupada's movies coming out, her book should be promoted in that way, so that people can know that there was, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who was a unique mother and will always be remembered as a unique mother. Mother Yamuna ki jai.